Chapter 1. Bloody hell. Tristan Kingsley was in a dark spiral. Anger and confusion raged beneath his skin like wildfire. His mother had sent his carefully constructed plan toppling down like a house of cards when she'd announced her engagement to an American investment banker. Her engagement wasn't the worst part of the whole situation. No, the fucking demons in hell were laughing at him for the ironic twist his destiny had just taken. Because 5 minutes ago, Catherine Roberts had walked through the door with her father, Clayton. My cat. The girl he'd ruthlessly pursued and sweetly seduced until she'd succumbed and let him take her to bed. The girl he'd fucked so hard she'd had trouble walking the next morning. The girl he'd opened up to about things he'd never shared with anyone. And he still hadn't had enough of her to satisfy his obsession. My stepsister. Future stepsister. And 2 nights ago, they'd rammed his headboard into the wall so hard it had left gouges in the wallpaper. He'd had rough, wild sex before, but with her, she'd been so innocent, a bloody virgin, but she'd responded like a sex goddess. I can't think about her anymore. How her body felt underneath me, skin to skin. How perfect she tasted. How she screamed out my name when I exploded inside of her. Kat hadn't moved from the doorway to the library of his mother's townhouse. The moment she'd come in the door and recognized him, she'd frozen. Her face pale, her lips pursed, and her grey eyes wide as saucers. She hadn't known this was coming, just as he hadn't. It was a bloody nightmare. They'd left Cambridge separately for their Christmas holidays, each facing the same situation. His mother had told him that she was in a relationship with someone, and Kat's father had told her the same. Neither he nor Kat could have guessed that their parents had met in London and started dating, or gotten engaged. It was a strange and now damnable coincidence. Of all the eligible men in London his mother could have met and fallen in love with, it had to be Kat's father. At 25 years old and working towards his master's in business, Tristan could afford little time for distractions, aside from the string of nameless girls he'd slept with before Kat. He had classes and the pressures of his father's estate looming over him. That was the price he had to pay for being the future Earl of Pembroke. Until he'd walked into the Pickerel Inn pub one night, and his world had changed forever. Kat, a luscious, intoxicating first-year undergraduate, had walked up to the bar for a drink and they'd talked. Something had seemed to pull them together, like invisible strings. She'd leaned up on her tiptoes and kissed him. The way she'd felt in his arms, her lips melding with his. In an instant he'd gone from a man who could have any woman he wanted to a man who wanted only her. She was 19 and so inexperienced. He wanted to drag her back to his bed and never let her leave until he'd shown her everything he knew about the art of sexual pleasure. My obsession, my erotic fantasy. Mine, all mine. At least she had been, until his mum had blown his plans to hell with the news that Kat was going to be his stepsister. As a stepsister, a family relation, she'd be untouchable. Their parents simply wouldn't allow it. He'd had plenty of encounters with protective fathers in the past when stories of women he'd seduced had come out in the papers, but Tristan had always held his ground, had never done the honourable thing and married any of those girls. It was just sex. This wasn't the Victorian era. If a woman went to bed with him, that was her choice, and no father could demand Tristan do anything afterward. I've never been a saint. I certainly can't be one now. Not when I want Kat as badly as I do. But how was he going to get Kat all to himself if his mother and her father were watching over them both during the holidays? He'd have to find a way to keep their relationship a secret. It was the only solution.